what happened with Volition and what they did this past with this past release that they did. Volition released Saints Row during the summer of this year, and it did okay in sales, but it still disappointed. And that was mainly because of the technical problems and just the quality of the game itself was not great. This is now leading for Volition to go from a main studio to develop games to now a support studio for Gearbox. Zero, what do you think about the fall of Volition after the release of Saints Row?
Yeah, it definitely wasn't good. And in my mind, I think really part of the reason for the low sales and everything is also likely the fact that they completely ignored releasing the Saints Row reboot on Steam, because just for the longest while the Saints Row games have been on Steam, and to all of a sudden just kind of pull the rug out from under people and go, oh yeah, so you want the rebooted Saints Row game, you have to go on Epic. You have no other alternatives. If you want to play it on PC, either get it on Epic or don't. And it's a little bit funny and ironic that the news of Volition becoming a support studio for Gearbox came up, because I believe it was either this weekend or yesterday, Volition actually released a brand new trailer for the Saints Row reboot game, saying that they fixed over 300 bugs and glitches in the game. So, and I remember seeing the trailer and I was just like, I don't know if that's something you really want to be proud of.
Yeah, you spent marketing money on saying, hey, we fixed it somewhat. Like, that's weird. I want to also point out that some of you might be saying, wow, they literally demoted the studio because of one bad game. No, they've had a few bad games in the past. I think the past few releases. Get Out of Hell did not do very well. It got bad reviews, and I played it too, and I did not like it. Agents of Mayhem tanked. That did not do well at all. That was them trying to do a brand new game after Saints Row, and that tanked. And now that this game tanked, I can see why Embracer Group pretty much said, you know what? We're just going to take this away from you. And you can go help Gearbox make the new Borderlands. So, hopefully that doesn't mean people are getting fired. But at this point, if I'm running or I'm in charge of these studios and they are constantly underperforming, yeah, I demote them too at this point. And it sucks. Like, I do feel bad for them to a certain extent, but even before Saints Row was coming out, like, people who were into Saints Row were not happy with the direction that it was going in. Yes, you want to, if you're going to reboot a game, you want to make it different in a way, but you need to still ground it into where it started. You can't make a Star Wars movie, reboot it, and not have Jedis, you know? Like, or you can't have the Sith or Rebels or whatever. You still need to make it Star Wars. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think just with the reboot, they were trying way too hard to sort of try to go for the vibe that they were going for in Saints Row 1 and 2. 1 was kind of an okay first try. It wasn't perfect, but it was a good first try. 2 nailed the vibe of, hey, this is kind of like Grand Theft Auto, but you know, a little bit more chill, a little bit more fun. And again, just 1 and 2 aren't bad games. Just people kind of mistake them being cult classics as somehow equating them to being, you know, just super popular and whatnots. And I hate to bust everyone's bubble about it, but yeah, just Saints Row 2 was just ultimately relegated to cult classic status. I mean, it's a great game, but it I think when it came out, there was a Grand Theft Auto that had came out, and well, just Grand Theft Auto won that money fight.
Yeah. Saints Row only got popular because people heard Grand Theft Auto multiplayer and went, oh, I want to try that. That sounds awesome. That's exactly the reason why Saints Row 1 sold so well and did so well. And you're right, Saints Row 2 did pretty good, but when compared to Grand Theft Auto of that year, it didn't make that much money. It was when when 3 came out, is when it gained the identity that it really propelled it to a big time franchise or a big time game, because 3 just went in an entirely different direction and did such a good job with it that it like, to me, I will say this, and people be like, you're crazy. I think Saints Row the Third is probably the best of those types of games. That is including the Grand Theft Auto games. Like, I think Saints Row the Third is the best out of any of them. I think that's how good that is. And then 4 went a slightly different direction, but stayed with the zaniness and the silliness. Saints Row seemed to try to say, like, oh, we're not going to do that part because that's problematic. So we're going to go for the younger audience that didn't like Saints Row in the first place. And then when they missed on that part, they also missed on the gameplay part. What do you got after that? Like, you have a stone cold bomb after that. So at this point, like I said, I agree with Embracer. It's time to relegate them to a certain extent. And if they're going to go back to Saints Row, I'd hate to say it, but I'd give it to somebody else. See what they would do with it. Thank you for listening to this podcast segment. The Capital Games podcast is done every week, and we post it on all your favorite podcast apps, as well as segments on YouTube. If you want to listen to another segment, you can listen to a new one right there on the screen. We also do a movie podcast called the Capital Games Movie Club. If you'd like, you can go ahead and click on that and see all the movies that we have reviewed from that point. Thank you for listening, and we hope to hear from you soon.